Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Chris from PR Game Fit, and I finally finished playing The Surge. So I'm going to talk about the story, the gameplay, replay value, graphics and sound, and what I actually think of the game. So I'm going to start with the plot and the story. So obviously this takes place in the future. There's robots. It's like a sci-fi action RPG. And I like to think of it too as like a mystery, because if you follow what Warren, the main character, says throughout the game, he's constantly asking the other NPCs like, what's going on here, like how did this happen. So I feel like it's kind of like a mystery of what's really going on that you don't learn about until the end of the game. So like in that sense, I feel like it falls into the mystery category. Obviously it's very sci-fi and it's very action RPG, but in my mind it's also very for all intensive purposes like mystery based genre. And like the dude's not Sherlock Holmes obviously, but he is like questioning what's going on here, and things aren't really what they seem. So that's all I'm going to say about that. The world is basically a reflection of like humanity's evolution and the evolution of technology. Now, for some reason, it's like my understanding that the majority of the normal people are handicapped. Like when you see Warren in the beginning, he's in a wheelchair, but after like hearing a lot of the audio logs and hearing a lot of the background information throughout the game, I'm under the impression that a lot of people are handicapped. So that's like where the exosuits and the rigs come into play, is that the people who work for this corporation Creo, who are responsible for like the Project Resolve, and they're basically claiming to be saving the world, or that's their claim, you know, is that their company, they claim that they're maintaining the Earth's, or they're rebuilding the Earth's atmosphere, and they're trying to get this desolate world that we live in today, or that Warren lives in, back to its original state, back to how it is in our time. Very what's the word I want to use? Lots of foliage. So like it's lots of foliage, it's green, it's blue. Like the world Warren lives in is brown and tan. You know, that's just the way it is. But it's all because or due to the fact of the evolution of technology and where humanity has become of because of that. So that's like the story in a nutshell without giving too much away. I'm gonna just talk about a couple of things I liked, and there's only one thing I really didn't like that I noticed that was like really hard to ignore. And then, so should I start with the good or the bad? I think I'm just gonna start with the bad, because then it'll make the good stuff sound better, and like we'll end on a high note for the gameplay. The only thing I didn't like was that the level design. Sometimes you've in like, and because it's third person, sometimes you're in like very narrow corridors, or you're running through like these, I don't know, service like tunnels or whatever. But the walls are very tight, like the ceiling is very low, the floor is really high, and you're in a third person camera. And sometimes they put like enemies into these areas, and the camera, like even when you're using the targeting system, like the camera doesn't work that well, and it's like you're constantly getting blocked off. But I think this is like a common thing that happens in a lot of third person games, especially like in that come into play like in the same constraints of when you have level design that becomes very narrow or like bottlenecked. It's like you just like the camera's constantly getting pushed in towards you, or like cutting off a lot of like your view. And that was something that was like really bugged me a lot. But it really doesn't happen too much. I'd say like it's like the big thing was like the service tunnels and a couple other areas. But it only led like into those points where it's like you realized you were going to be in this situation, but you had to continue on. So it's like you're kind of stuck just dealing with it. but it really wasn't that much. Like, I mean, only a handful of times, literally between like 1 to 5, unless you have to play through the area again, but then it's like you already know it's coming, so you can like target their weak point. So that was like my big thing that I didn't like, but that's like a common problem. So the things that I did like, I really liked the implant system and like your core power. So instead of like leveling up like statistics and like your attributes, like putting points on strength or health or whatever, as you upgraded your rig or like your power core, it gave you greater core power, which sounds funny, but you have these implants that you like put into your body, and then like those really create like the character that you're playing with. Like the implants really, when it comes down to it, are really what make up your character. Like, so you can have implants to grant yourself more health, more stamina, more energy, implants that'll like buff your damage, implants that'll buff different types of damage, lots of, you know, different varieties of ways to build energy, ways to get health back, ways to maintain stamina, and just things like that. And that's what really makes up the character that you play as, which was kind of nice. Like, you don't see that in a lot of games. And the nice part was too is you can take the implants in and out. So if you decide like, so like let's just say for example you're playing another game where you put 20 points into strength, and for whatever reason now you have 55 points of strength, you realize that you don't even need that much, but you can never get the points back. Kind of a shitty situation you've just put yourself in, and you've put the character you've created in. The nice thing about this is like if you go with like the strength buffs through the implant system, if you realize you've done too much, you can always just go back, free up some space, and try something else. So that was nice, is there wasn't too much failure, and that's kind of like how the whole game was very safe feeling, because the same thing with tech scrap, where you accumulate the tech scrap. That's basically like the currency that you use to upgrade your core. You accumulate it by killing enemies, and you'll find consumable items that give you more tech scrap. Cool thing is there's also implants that'll grant you a higher percent of tech scrap dropped from enemies if you're like trying to boost your character or build your core power faster. So the thing with tech scrap is, though, that's similar to other games that we've all played before, was that when you die, your tech scrap gets dropped on the ground, and then you have like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The good thing that they actually did in this game is that they give you so many shortcuts like through the level design. So like as you progress, you unlock more shortcuts to return back to your checkpoint. You never need more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Is it like really difficult sometimes? Yes, it is. But when you kill enemies, like you get more time to go pick up the tech scrap. So like let's say you start with the 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get back to where you died before to pick up your tech scrap. And every time you kill an enemy, like you get an extra 30 seconds. You can kill enemies in like 5 or 10 seconds if you just target their weak spot and don't even go for the limbs. So like that was kind of nice that they did the shortcuts and the level design back like that. But the one thing I wanted to say, the reason I started to say that, was because with the tech scrap, you can save it like when you go to the med bay or like the gear assembly thing in the ops place, which what the ops center is basically like your checkpoint at every different level. So when you go back to the ops center, it's like you can bank your tech scrap. So it's like, say you don't know what to do and you have 100,000, you can just bank it and then go back into the level with no money. And what was nice about this too is sometimes there was like really difficult spots in the game, and so without having to worry about anything, you could just bank all your tech scrap and then go into the part, and like if you die, like it doesn't matter because you're not gonna lose anything, you know, because all your currency is banked. So like that was really nice. So that like reiterates what I was talking about before, where it's like the game creates like this safety, you know, net for you in a lot of ways. So like the level progression and like your character personalization is pretty safe because you can always change it. and like the bank with the tech scrap makes the in-game currency like safe no matter what happens. So the only another thing that I wanted to talk about, I think this is the last thing that I really liked that has to do with the gameplay, was I really liked the combat. Not because it was like Dark Souls. And you have to remember, like, these are the same guys. The same guys created this game, and they also created Lords of the Fallen, which was very like Dark Souls. I wish people would call this combat system something else other than like the Souls combat system, or like anytime people talk about it, it's like, oh, it's the Souls combat, like whatever. It's nice that I like that they went with this combat system, but I also like that they tried to do like something new. So the way that they do the targeting and the way you acquire different pieces of gear. Oh, and like, just for the record too, the gear and the weapons are fucking awesome. I love the way they did that, and I love the way that they did the combat system to where you could cut off people's arms and legs to get like their items. I fucking hate games where you kill enemies and they drop something that's like totally unrelated to like that person that they are, like, as an enemy. Like, whatever, I don't want to get into it, but the combat system was great, and I like how they went off on their own and decided to try to do something new with the targeting system, doing left, right, head, body type thing. And then when you cut off the limbs, you know, like, you get that armor and you can break it down for resources to build more armor or upgrade your existing armor. Like, that's a great idea. I really like that they went with that, and I like that they stuck with it and tried to do it. There is another thing called, like, there's another way to play called, I think it's called like non-sticky limb targeting or something. I really want to try it out, but they talk about it between loading screens in the game. They'll say like, oh, if you think this is challenging now, try playing it this way. And I think it's like a way to play more fluently, and I think it's the way that they wanted the game to be played, but they thought it might be a little too hard. Saying the word like that, it might be too hard too. After completing the game, like, it doesn't feel that hard now because I beat it. But while I was playing it, like, it was like a really hard game. Like, the bosses were really hard, and you definitely had to play them multiple times. There wasn't one boss that I beat the first time through, and there wasn't a level that I cleared without dying once. Like, that's for sure. So the game gives big... I like games that are challenging. I like dying in games. I like learning about how to beat a game. I don't like games that you can just play all the way through and never die, and you know what I mean, never get frustrated. I mean, obviously, like, I think it's okay to be a little frustrated, and I think it's okay to feel challenged. I mean, but like, don't make it fucking impossible, because there's definitely games out there that are like fucking impossible, and it's like, it's just more pain. It becomes not even fun. But to me, a challenging game is fun. So, you know, testing my limits as a gamer is something that I enjoy doing, and I enjoy when a developer and a production team come out and they do that. I mean, I've been playing games for a long ass time. I mean, I was playing, this is a review of The Surge. Let's get back to it. I'll go over my gaming history in another video. So those are the things that I liked in The Surge. I liked the combat, I liked the tech scrap, I liked the gear, the way you acquired it and the way you upgraded it, and I loved the implant system. Those were the big things that I really liked. Like, nobody's done the implant system before. I feel like I've never really seen that, and so it's always nice to play a game where they're doing things that nobody else is doing. Obviously, like, there's tons of fucking videos talking about Dark Souls and all this and that shit, and yeah, Dark Souls did something fucking awesome, and so people are now building off of it. I'm gonna make another video about this game and Dark Souls and their relationship, so I'm not gonna get too much into it right now. So moving on to the graphics and the sounds, I'm just gonna like let a couple clips play for like 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Speaking from like a technical standpoint and from practicality, I never had any problems with the sounds. The voiceovers and like the voice syncing wasn't super great all the time with the NPCs, but I mean, it's not really a big issue because the game's camera never really like gets in that close. Visually speaking, I never experienced any like giant frame rate drops or anything. I think the thing that I spoke about before with the camera, I think partially that has to do with visuals. I think they did a great job. I think everything is up to the point of where console quality is. So I think that the audio, in my opinion, the visual graphics and the audio sounds that you hear are pretty much at the top level of quality that you can get. You guys can be the judge. I'm just going to let this play for like 30 seconds, and I'll get into the next phase after. As far as the replay value goes, I think they did a really good job with having the New Game Plus, and so when you beat the first playthrough, when you go into New Game Plus, you actually go into it, unless you decide to create another character, you can go into it with your existing character, starting at the same core level, and you get to keep all the gear and weapons that you have. So the nice thing about that was, as you're playing through the game, there's a lot of doors and chests, or basically lootable crates, or whatever you want to call them, that require like a really high core level to overcharge. So now you can go, when you go back and play through the game, you'll be able to open up those boxes and you'll be able to get that gear. So it's like, to me, it's like, I think it deserves at least like one extra playthrough, because they kind of make it that way. It's like, to see, if you want to see everything it has to offer, the game has to offer, you have to play New Game Plus at least one time, because you have to go through those doors and you have to open up those crates to acquire whatever's on the other side, or to see whatever's on the other side. So it's like everything can't be done in the first playthrough. So the game kind of forces you, if you choose and if you want to see everything the game has to offer, to play through it again. And I think that's a smart move, and I think more games should do that, especially because it is single player. So the interaction that you're going to have in New Game Plus is going to be obviously similar to the experience you had the first time you played it through. So with that, though, I do give a thumbs up on replay value, because I think you have to play it at least one more time to get everything. And moving into my opinion, if you couldn't tell by now, I really like this game. An evolution in the action RPG series. I think it like takes a step forward. I also think it's like very reminiscent of things like Zelda, where you have a lot of backtracking after you've made progression to certain points of the game. So in my opinion, like, I really liked it a lot. I looked at some of the other reviews like IGN and Metacritic and stuff, and a lot of people were giving it like around 7s or low 8s. In my opinion, I think it did a little bit better than that. I would have to say like if we're talking about a score of 100, I would think at least like mid to high 80s, maybe a 90. I kind of liked it. I mean, I would definitely give it like an 89 or a 90. I think these guys did an excellent job. I think the game looked and played great for 97% of the time. Nothing is ever perfect. I really enjoyed it, and I think like I said, I think it's just a step in the right direction. I think this is a game that challenges players. I think that's a good ideal to set your games to. I think that's a good expectation to have. And overall, I think it was a great game. And I mean, I played it all the way through. I completed it. I'm going to play New Game Plus. And I think it's a good game. It's a good game. Thumbs up. 89, 90%. That's basically going to be it. I'm just going to cut this one off. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to talk about the game, comment below. If you want to see more videos, subscribe to my channel. Ring that bell, and you'll be notified. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next Surge video.